Welcome back to the Spiritual Warfare Unit. This is the Warrior's Way, supported by United Community Addiction Network, UCAN, and I have Father Thomas Dunseth, and he is with us from the Flint Deaf Church, right downtown, across from McLaren. And you were just getting into the Cantonese language and going in there for 2 years, and still not. And you gave us that tonal difference in the words, which makes me not want to learn that language, because that's just one word, and you have to learn 9 tonal things for each word, and then how they work together. So, like, I'm thinking in my mind, just to finish that up, is like A is ah or ah, right? A has those 2 basic tones, so they could have 9 tones. That's crazy, and I can understand that you're still putting it together after 2 years, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I think with some of those, the depth and the richness of that language, it's a lifetime of study, especially if you're not hearing it and speaking it every day.
Right. Yeah. Right. So, all right. So you're here, not even getting into deaf community, just doing ministry out there for the church. And then what happened?
Well, it was in the second year of language study. So the first year was listening and speaking. So you're getting all the tones, the pronunciations in the first year, putting sentences together, grammar and that. Mm-hmm. The second year, it was much more intense, because that was reading and writing those characters. So that's a whole, that even more is a lifetime of study. But to help with my language study, the principal of the Concordia School for Special Education there, which was the deaf school, the Lutheran deaf school there in the city. The principal invited me over to help at the school. So he said, can you please come over on Fridays and lead the chapel for us?
Yeah.
And then, later it was like, can you do teachers' devotions for us? So I had to prepare,
slow rolling you
into, to reeling me in.
Yeah.
He was very clever. Yeah. So I would begin, because I didn't know any sign language at that time. And in fact, for your listeners and your watchers, we understand that being with deaf people is not that comfortable, because their language is so foreign to us. And especially, I would go into the school to meet this principal maybe a couple times a month before he had asked me. And I would walk in, and I get mobbed by all these children, because they, you rarely see somebody that looks like me, tall, white, and not having dark hair, dark eyes.
Oh, sure.
So they would just come up to me, and the deaf children, the way they get your attention is tap on you or pull on your clothes.
Oh.
So I'm getting tapped and pulled in all directions. And this is very awkward, uncomfortable. I don't know the language. Yeah. So what I would do then is, I found out when the class was in session. So I would make my entrance into the school when all the kids were in their classrooms.
So you're not getting swatted.
Right. I would zip up to my meeting with him, and then I would wait until the bell rang, they were back in class, and leave. Right. Because it was so awkward.
Right. And you had a bunch of them just yanking and pulling at you. And of course, you can't hit them,
No, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Or even say, hi, good morning, how are you?
Sure, because it's, again, a different language on top of a language.
Completely. It's a visual manual language. Man. So when I was leading the chapels or the devotions, or I had 2 interpreters. Right. I was in the beginning, I would speak English, and one of them would listen to the English and translate into Cantonese,
right.
And the other interpreter would listen to the Cantonese and translate into sign.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, like, what is the time? So, like, you say something, you got to wait like 20 seconds for each person to finish?
Well, so sign language interpretation is immediate. Right,
okay.
They're interpreting while you're speaking, but the Cantonese interpreter had to listen to me, and then I would stop after a phrase.
Yeah,
and then she would then speak Cantonese, and the sign language interpreter, because she didn't know English, had to wait for the Cantonese.
Okay, because this, like, here's my mind. Like, I'm seeing the 3 blind mice up there, right? That's what's going in my head right now. So you're like, thank you, our Father which art in heaven, right? And then
yes.
Hallowed be thy name, and they're
exactly.
And you're like, okay.
Exactly.
So you're doing this, and there has to be like a comfortability with the interpreters, right? Or is that like
They're used to it.
okay?
And they got used to me, my English, American
Okay.
English, so that everything's. But there some of their English was quite good, yeah, so, but not all.
Yeah, no, that whole scenario in my head is like I just see that one like being pretty hard and difficult, but it's like, what do you do? That's what you got to do in the situation so you get it done, right?
Yes.
So, and my favorite part about this story so far is you were voluntold. That's my favorite part because
Yes.
it's like, as a guy that was in the military, I can relate to that. And I'm like, okay, so here you are in ministry, you're doing this, and the kids, and like being in a car accident and being touched. To me, it feels like insects going up and down my body. That's why you always see me, hey, and like I gotta really like you to hug you because it's like, oh, right. And I don't typically tell people that, but that's it's not personal. I'm fighting my body to be.
Wow. Isaac, you would do great in China because Chinese don't touch.
Oh, that would be excellent.
They generally hugging and touching and all
Yeah.
that is just not
Yeah.
appropriate.
And now that we're living in the land of the cooties, and everybody
Even more so.
right, could possibly have.
It's hard
cooties.
for some people. I understand.
Yeah, the old fist bump thing works great nowadays.
For you,
right?
yes, it does.
Hey, listen, I appreciate like people, but it's good that we wash our hands and people want to stay clean. But for people who have gone through a traumatic injury, like in my case, a traumatic brain injury, and like your body just reacts to things differently, and so like it's being stuck in a foreign. You're fighting yourself to do normal things, right? And so I'm looking at it from this position going, I would like that. I don't like that thing with the kids. I'd have been like, okay, it was great seeing you guys. I failed. Jesus is not going to love me for this. And I can, there's like, you know what I'm saying? But he put you in the situation. So like the type of mental fortitude necessary to do what you do, like is unbelievable because like what I'm pulling out of this is you went somewhere you didn't know you were going, then had to learn a language for 2 years, then you had to learn another language, and then you had two people that had to teach you that language simultaneously while you're doing it, and you got this guy reeling you in a little bit at a time trying, it's going to be wonderful, don't look behind the curtain, and this is the scenario you're sitting in, right? Mm-hmm. And you're such a congenial person. Like I enjoy just sitting and talking to you, and so I'm sitting there looking at you going, well, okay, I think we could do this. And all right, I'll give that a try. Like in my mind, I see you doing those things, and this is where you're sitting. I mean, there had to be some struggle. There had to be something that was like funny, but a struggle that you went through during this time that you can share with us. And
sure.
What do you got? There's got to be some gems.
One thing comes to mind, and I'd like to to say first too that flexibility, congeniality. Languages are all gifts,
right?
None of us is clever enough to learn those things, and
right.
and sometimes flexibility comes through hard knocks.
Yeah, that is.
So, yeah. So, what had happened was after my year of listening and speaking, I could do kindergarten Cantonese.
Right.
So really simple, which was all right with perfect for special needs kids,
mm-hmm.
and for deaf kids who are struggling getting used to learning a second language
mm-hmm.
like Chinese. So after 1 year, I got rid of the Cantonese interpreter. So then it was just me and the sign language interpreter.
So you were very comfortable with it by that point.
Yeah, so I could just speak simple Cantonese, and she'd be interpreting as I was speaking. So it cut a lot of time off, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
No more lag time.
Yeah.
So, after another year, I was able to get rid of the sign language interpreter and do it all myself.
Oh, okay.
And so I was picking up the local sign language, doing really good,
mm-hmm.
And then one day I was at this adult Bible study with a bunch of people,
mm-hmm.
and I had this American deaf gal came over for a couple of years just to help us out at the deaf school.
Mm-hmm.
She's from Wisconsin. And not having to learn Cantonese, she could go directly into the sign language, and she picked it up in a month, and she was fluent.
Wow.
It was wonderful
Yeah.
just to see her. So she was there, so she was my eyes there for learning stuff, a lot of stuff about the sign language. And then she signed the Chinese with me, so I didn't know American Sign Language at this time. So after this Bible study, I felt pretty confident, that I had communicated this. And I looked in the back, and this one deaf guy taps a woman who was sitting next to him on his shoulder, and he said, "What did he say?"
Uh-oh.
Yeah, which communicated to me that he didn't understand my expert signing that I had just done for the past hour. So I said to this Wisconsin deaf gal after the bobsled, I said,
Yeah.
"What was that all about?" And she just laughs, and she says, how do I say this without hurting your feelings?
Outstanding.
She says, there's really two kind of sign languages going on in this room. One is the one that follows the Chinese grammar, which you do, and you do that really well. She said, but a lot of the deaf, they call deaf people, don't. Chinese English grammar isn't just Chinese grammar is not part of their life, so they follow the Chinese Sign Language grammar, which is completely different. And because you didn't get it,
right?
And I said, "Oh no!" I said, "So about what percentage of that room was that?" She says, "About 80."
Oh no! So nobody's getting it.
Nobody's getting it. So then I said to her, well, "When were you going to tell me this?"
Yeah, I'm just failing at a spectacular rate, and we're just. Yeah, well, that's why one of our mottos is beatings will commence until morale improves, right? Because it's amazing how you get in a situation you really think, man, I'm doing good and I got this figured out. And it's like God's like, here, I'm going to bring someone into your life to help you, show you just how unintelligent you are, right? And for me, like, it was kind of the opposite because I had grown up, I was a C student. Best case scenario, C student, study an hour, get a C, study 4 hours, get a C. Not smart, not an idiot, just average, just average guy. And my dad was like, always, you're going to have to work hard, because you're not college material. And I'm like, that's fair. That's fair. And I always have been a pretty hard worker, and I get in there, but it's like going through the injury and the therapy and all this stuff. And, they're always telling you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. And then getting to this point, and Thomas, for 3 years of my life, I was saying everything I thought, and I had no idea that I was doing that. So imagine, like you said 80% was just failing, right? I'm like, man, these people are just mad. I have no idea what the issue is whatsoever, and go into restaurants, and we'll be sitting there, and all of a sudden my wife's like, well, we're leaving. And I'm like, I'm hungry. What do you mean we're leaving? She's like, I don't want the waiter to spit in our coffee. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you just insulted him. And I was like, I didn't. She's like, you did. You just said this. And I'm like, man, I was thinking that. Like, I didn't say that because that would be rude. But I was actually saying these things. And it was completely oblivious.
It's no filter.
Oh, had no idea. That's part of the injury, right? I mean, who has the problem of saying what you think? That doesn't even come into your mindset. So you... doing the sign language, the same thing. And it was like one of those moments where you got to sit down. You got to have something like the School of Hard Knocks. Like, you got to have something really bad where you're like, oh, oops.
Isaac, this is amazing. I think the more I talk with you, the more I think you would be a really good candidate for recruiting for working over there with deaf people in China. Because, why do I say this? Part of deaf culture, because everything is visual, right? And they don't necessarily know they don't pick up on, unless their parents knew sign language, which most of them didn't,
right?
That they are very, very direct, and they sign what they're thinking and what they see. Like, if you've put on, about 20 pounds at Christmas time, they're going to say, Isaac, wow, you're really put on a ton of weight.
You're huge.
Yeah, you're. And it's just a visual observation to them.
Yeah,
but you would be great. You're.
Well, that's one thing that I'm glad that the injury rule going to be good on. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to head to commercial. We'll be right back.